front of the court under Indictment 2300416. It is a 28-count indictment, Your Honor. He is entering guilty pleas as charged under all 28 counts. It's an effective sentence, Judge, of 3 life sentences running consecutively with no parole, followed by 221 years for the various other counts. Judge, this plea is entered into with the approval of all victims in this matter and family members of the deceased victims. Judge, had this matter gone to trial, the state would have elicited the following set of facts, and it's lengthy, Your Honor. May I please sit?
Yes, sir.
On Wednesday, September the 7th, 2022, at approximately 3,300 hours, Ezekiel Kelly shot and killed Dwayne Tunstall at 3176 Lindell Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee. Tunstall was pronounced dead on the scene at 1:04 hours. Witnesses advised that Kelly pulled Tunstall aside, brandished a black handgun, and fired multiple shots, striking Tunstall in the head. On September 7th at 4:35 p.m., Memphis police responded to a shooting call at 946 South Parkway East at the BP gas station. Officers observed a male, later identified as Richard Clark, sitting in the driver's seat of a Toyota Camry, suffering from gunshot wounds. Paramedics made the scene and pronounced the male victim deceased. Investigators were able to view security video from the gas station. The male victim exits the store and walks over to his vehicle on the east side of the gas station. As he opens the driver's side door and starts to get in, a blue-gray 4-door sedan, possibly an Infiniti, pulls into the lot and drives over to the victim. With his windows rolled down, the suspect points a handgun at the victim and shoots him several times. The sedan then drives off the lot southbound on College Street, crosses over South Parkway East and onto the interstate ramp. Victim Stevie Scott was parked next to Richard Clark on Clark's passenger side. Scott was sitting in the driver's seat when Clark was shot and was in the direct line of fire. At 4:36 p.m., Memphis police responded to a shooting call at I-240 southbound and Norris Road at the exit ramp. Upon arrival, officers located victim Lakeisha McGlathan suffering from a gunshot wound to her right upper thigh. Lakeisha stated a male occupying a dark gray sedan, possibly an Infiniti, pulled up to her while her father, victim Willie McGlathan, was changing her flat tire. Lakeisha stated the male asked her for directions to Whitehaven, and after telling them, he fired at least 3 shots from inside his vehicle, striking her once in the thigh. Lakeisha described the male as having a dark complexion, spiky hair, and wearing a white t-shirt. Willie McGlathan stated a male driving a gray Infiniti shot his daughter while he was changing her tire. Willie stated the male looked him in the eyes, then went eastbound on Norris Road. Victims Lakeisha and Willie McGlathan both identified Ezekiel Kelly in a 6-person photo lineup as the man who shot at them, striking Lakeisha. At 5:50, Memphis police responded to a shooting call at 4011 Jackson Avenue at the AutoZone store. Upon arrival, officers observed victim Rodolfo Zepeda lying in the floor in front of the checkout counter, suffering from a gunshot wound. Zepeda was transported to Regional 1 Hospital in critical condition. Witness Christopher Bedsole advised that he was in line at the checkout counter when a male walked through the front door and shot about 3 times, striking Zepeda. The suspect then drove off in a gray Infiniti, according to Bedsole. AutoZone surveillance video shows Mr. Kelly park the Infiniti by the front door of the store. Mr. Kelly then approaches the store, opens the front door, and walks inside. He has his cell phone in his left hand and his handgun under his left armpit. He then immediately grabs the gun with his right hand and takes several shots towards victims Zepeda and Bedsole, striking Zepeda. The same incident was live streamed on Mr. Kelly's personal Facebook page under the name Zeke Huncho. At 5:56 p.m., Memphis police were flagged down at Millington Road and Hollydale Cove by Pamela Collier and Denise Taylor. They advised officers that Ezekiel Kelly, son to Pamela and brother to Denise, was on Facebook Live talking about just killing 2 people in South Memphis, and then he recorded himself shooting at someone to what appeared to be an AutoZone. Pamela advised that Mr. Kelly is driving a sky blue 4-door Infiniti. Also in the video, Mr. Kelly is holding a Glock handgun with a silver extended magazine, and it appears to have a switch to render it fully automatic. At 7:21 p.m., Memphis police responded to a shooting call in the area of Poplar Avenue and North McLean Boulevard. Upon arrival, officers observed a female victim, later identified as Allison Parker, laying on Poplar Avenue and suffering from a gunshot wound. Paramedics made the scene and pronounced Miss Parker deceased. Victim Bo Bates advised that he was driving westbound Poplar in his Dodge Ram in the far left lane when a gray Infiniti in the middle lane, also going westbound Poplar, turned left in front of him, striking his truck and causing both vehicles to crash. Several witnesses on the scene advised that after the crash, the driver of the Infiniti, identified as Ezekiel Kelly, exited the vehicle and started walking westbound. He approached a black sedan, but that vehicle immediately drove off. Mr. Kelly then approached a blue Honda Pilot driven by victim Randall Graham. Ezekiel fired several shots at the Honda Pilot, at which time Mr. Graham drove away but was struck in the arm. One of those bullets also went through the right pants leg of victim Matthew Carrozza, who was walking with his wife, Jill Carrozza, in front of 1811 Poplar. The bullet did not strike Mr. Carrozza, just his clothing. Mr. Graham was transported to Regional 1 Hospital in non-critical condition. After shooting at the Honda Pilot, Mr. Kelly continued walking westbound Poplar and approached a gray Toyota CHR, which was stopped eastbound Poplar. Ariana Parker was in the front passenger seat and immediately exited the vehicle and went over to the driver's side to try and get her mother, Allison Parker, out of the vehicle. Mr. Kelly entered the Toyota from the passenger side and then shot several times, striking Allison, who then exits the vehicle and falls to the ground. Mr. Kelly then drives away eastbound Poplar in the Toyota CHR. These events are captured on a residential surveillance camera. Witness Jerika Gents lives on Poplar near North McLean where this incident occurred. Gents advised she saw the suspect walking westbound Poplar after the crash and was approaching the vehicles. She then heard the shots and ran back inside her apartment. Miss Gents identified Ezekiel Kelly in a 6-person photo lineup as the man she observed on Poplar. At 8:52, South Haven, Mississippi police responded to a call for police at 580 State Line Road West at the Raceway gas station. Upon arrival, officers came in contact with victim Demetric Porter. Mr. Porter advised that he parked his Dodge Challenger next to a gas pump facing north towards the gas station. While pumping gas, a gray SUV pulls up next to him and rolls down the driver's side window. Porter immediately recognized the driver as Ezekiel Kelly, whose image had been on the news since the shooting at AutoZone. Porter then runs westbound away from his Challenger. At that time, Mr. Kelly got out of the stolen Toyota CHR and into Porter's Challenger and drove away from the scene. The Challenger is valued at $24,999 per Kelly Blue Book. Victim Demetric Porter was shown a 6-person photo lineup and positively identified Ezekiel Kelly as the man who stole his Dodge Charger. At 8:57 p.m., Memphis police received information from South Haven PD that the stolen Challenger was northbound I-55 heading back to Tennessee. Officers located the Challenger and gave chase, which ended at Hodge Road and Ivan Road. Mr. Kelly was taken into custody at 9:15 p.m. without incident. The 2008 Infiniti G35 that was recovered from the crash on Poplar was reported stolen August 30th, 2022 by Lonte Smith from 3525 Gray Bark Drive, Memphis, Tennessee. The Infiniti is valued at $2,500. The Infiniti also matches the description as the vehicle seen in the surveillance video from incident number 1. Also, the male in that video was wearing a white shirt, which was the color shirt that Mr. Kelly was wearing when he was taken into custody. The ATF NIBIN team notified the Memphis Police Department and advised that it was determined that the shell casings recovered from 946 South Parkway East, 4011 Jackson, and Poplar and North McLean are a possible NIBIN match. ATF NIBIN also advised that those shell casings are a possible NIBIN match with the 9mm Glock Model 45 that was recovered from the Dodge Challenger that Ezekiel Kelly was last driving when he was taken into custody. The Glock Model 45 was illegally modified to allow it to fire rounds fully automatic. Mr. Kelly live-streamed portions of the events of September the 7th, 2022, making various threats to harm citizens. As a result of his live-streamed actions, the citizens of Memphis, Tennessee were placed in fear and subject to lockdowns in various public locations as the Memphis Police Department pursued Mr. Kelly. Ezekiel Kelly is a convicted felon under Shelby County Criminal Court Indictment number 20-02038, sentenced to 3 years for the crime of aggravated assault in 2021. Your Honor, had this matter gone to trial, those are the facts that the state would have elicited.
Your Honor, ways we stipulate that those were the facts as put forth by the state if the matter had gone to trial, and ask that you accept this negotiated plea.
Let's bring Mr. Kelly around.
Walk around. Speak. Stand in circle, raise your right hand, take your good.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth and nothing but the truth to help you God? All right, come have a seat, sir. So I'm going to go over some paperwork with you. If at any point I say something you don't understand, or if you have any questions, I want you to stop me and let me know. You understand? So the first question I have for you, sir, is how far along in school did you go? All right, now I'm going to need you to speak up loud and clear because everything we say is going to be recorded. I want to make sure we have a clear record of our conversation. Do you understand? All right, so you said you got your GED? Yes, sir. All right, so do you have any problems reading or writing?
No, sir.
Are you on any type of medication, drugs, alcohol, anything that would make it difficult for you to understand what we're doing today?
No, sir.
So this first document that I'm going to show you is an order on a guilty plea. On the back side of this document, it has your constitutional rights listed out here. Now, because of the amount of counts, there's several pages of this. Have you had a chance to go over each of these documents with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Is this your signature on each of these documents?
Yes, sir.
All right, now, sir, I'm going to go over these rights with you again on the record to make sure that you understand them. As I stated before, if I say something you don't understand or if you have any questions, I want you to stop me and let me know. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Sir, the first right that you have is a right to plead not guilty. What that means is that no one can make you say you did these things if you didn't want to. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you also have a right to a trial by jury, which means folks from the community come sit in those chairs. They would listen to the proof put on by the state, listen to the proof put on by your attorney, and they would be the ones to decide whether there should be a conviction in this case. But when you plead guilty, you waive your right to a trial and you're asking the court to issue a conviction. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We currently have a trial date scheduled in February. By entering this plea, that's going to eliminate that trial date and that's going to conclude your case today. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you also have a right to confront and cross-examine any witnesses against you. What that means is that anybody that's saying that you did the things that the state just talked about, you have a right to have them come sit in that chair and testify. Your attorney would ask whatever questions he needed to ask in order to help with your defense. But when you plead guilty, you waive that right. Do you understand that? So you also have the right to have any witnesses on your behalf come in and testify, even if they didn't want to. And if they didn't want to, the court could issue a warrant for their arrest, keep them in custody until they did testify. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Now, sir, you have an absolute right to testify, tell your side of the story. But you also have a constitutional right not to testify. And what that means is that no one can make you testify, not even the court. And if you chose not to testify, I would instruct the jury that they could not hold that against you. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Now, sir, if you were to go to trial, and if you were to lose a trial, you would have an automatic right to an appeal, which means that another court would look at your case, see if there were any mistakes. If there were any mistakes, determine the remedies necessary in order to fix those mistakes. But when you plead guilty, you waive your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And so you also have the right to have an attorney assist you at every stage of your defense. That includes anything that happens in this courtroom, anything that happens in the appellate court, and that right exists whether you can afford an attorney or not. If you could not afford an attorney, I would appoint an attorney for you. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And so when a person pleads guilty, they waive these rights. They give up these rights, and they can never get these rights back again. You can't come in tomorrow and say, I changed my mind, I want to go forward with trial. Do you understand that? Now, sir, in this particular case, the state has filed a notice seeking the death penalty. So that changes a little bit the dynamics of the trial. Make sure that you understand what would have occurred at trial. Sir, if we were to have a trial in this matter, we would go through the proof. If the jury would have convicted you at trial, then we would proceed with a sentencing portion. At that point, the state would have to present additional proof as far as enhancements. Your attorneys would be given the opportunity to present mitigating proof. It would be at that point there would be a determination on whether a death penalty should be imposed. But without the determination at that time, there would be a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. You understand how the trial would have occurred if it would have taken place?
Yes, sir.
Is your desire now to waive your right to a trial?
Yes, sir.
Now, sir, in this case, there have been several counts I'm going to go through these counts and make sure that you understand what it is that you are in fact pleading guilty to. In count 1, you would be pleading guilty to the charge of first-degree murder. You would receive a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. Count 2, you would be pleading guilty to reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon and receive a sentence of 2 years. That would be as a range 1 release eligibility of 30% offender. In count 3, you'd be pleading guilty to the charge of first-degree murder, receive a sentence of life without parole. Count 4, you would receive a sentence upon a plea to the charge of reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. That would be a 2-year sentence. That would be range 1 release eligibility of 30%. Count 5 would be convicted felon in possession of a firearm. You would receive a sentence of 12 years, range 1 at the statutory required 85%. Count 6, you would be pleading guilty to criminal attempt, first-degree murder. Receive a sentence of 25 years to be served as a range 1 offender, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 7, you would be pleading guilty to reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. Receive a sentence of 2 years, range 1, but at the release eligibility of 30%. Count 8, you'd be pleading guilty to employment of a firearm with a dangerous felony. Receive a sentence of 10 years at range 1, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 9, you would be pleading guilty to criminal attempt, first-degree murder. Receive a sentence of 25 years as a range 1 offender, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 10, you would be pleading guilty to reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. Receive a sentence of 2 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. Count 11, you would be pleading guilty to employment of a firearm with a dangerous felony. Receive a sentence of 10 years, range 1, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 12, you'd be pleading guilty to aggravated assault. Receive a sentence of 6 years, range 1, but at the required 100%. Count 13, you would be pleading guilty to criminal attempt, first-degree murder. Receive a sentence of 25 years, range 1, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 14, you would be pleading guilty to criminal attempt carjacking. Receive a sentence of 6 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. Count 15, you would be pleading guilty to the employment of a firearm during a dangerous felony. Receive a sentence of 10 years, range 1, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 16, you'd be pleading guilty to employment of a firearm during a dangerous felony. Receive a sentence of 10 years, range 1, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 17, you would be pleading guilty to reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. Receive a sentence of 2 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. Count 18, you would be pleading guilty to reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. Receive a sentence of 2 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. In count 19, you would be pleading guilty to first-degree murder. Receive a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. Count 20, you would be pleading guilty to the charge of carjacking. Receive a sentence of 12 years, range 1, at the statutory required 100%. Count 21, you'd be pleading guilty to employment of a firearm with a dangerous felony. Receive a sentence of 10 years, range 1, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 22, you would be pleading guilty to criminal attempt, first-degree murder. Receive a sentence of 25 years, range 1, release eligibility, or at the statutory required 100%. Count 23, you would be pleading guilty to employment of a firearm during a dangerous felony. Receive a sentence of 10 years, range 1, but at the statutory required 100%. Count 24, you'd be pleading guilty to theft of property, $10,000 to $60,000. Receive a sentence of 6 years, range 1, a release eligibility of 30%. Count 25, you'd be pleading guilty to intentionally evading arrest in an automobile with the risk of death. You would receive a sentence of 4 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. Count 26, you'd be pleading guilty to theft of property, $1,000 to $2,500. You would receive a sentence of 2 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. Count 27, you would be pleading guilty to the charge of possession of a prohibited weapon. Receive a sentence of 2 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. And in count 28, you would be pleading guilty to the charge of commission of an act of terrorism. Receive a sentence of 25 years, range 1, release eligibility of 30%. So those are the charges that you would be pleading guilty to. Sir, that has been the agreement that's been presented to the court. Sir, do you have any questions about those charges? Now, sir, the effective sentence would be 3 consecutive life sentences. In addition, there would be an additional 221 years. Sir, do you have any questions about the offer that's been presented to you? Now, sir, these are going to result in felony convictions on your record. With felony convictions, there's certain rights and restrictions that come into play. One is you lose your right to vote. The other is you can no longer have in your possession any firearms, ammunition, explosives. You can't even have just a bullet. It's important to understand possession does not just mean that you can't carry a weapon. It means that you can't be around guns. You can't be in cars where there's guns under the seat or houses where there's guns lying around. If you were to be picked up and another gun were attached to you, so they could bring state or federal charges. Do you understand that? Now, sir, in order for the court to accept this plea, the court has to make a finding that this is of your own free will and choice. Sir, is anyone forcing you, pressuring you, or threatening you in order to enter this plea today? Is anyone promising you anything other than the offers I've explained it?